G'day, so this is Karl Thomson from StorageCraft Asia Pacific, and today I'm going to be taking you through a journey through the new StorageCraft Cloud Services. Now I'm going to cater for those of you that might still be in the legacy StorageCraft Cloud and anyone that's new to the StorageCraft Cloud. Now in terms of getting started, the first thing is getting an account created in the cloud. So with StorageCraft you've got two options. You can either go through distribution and pre-purchase cloud credits, where you'll be provided a link to join the cloud, or we have our partners that are part of our MSP program where they'll be able to go in and create their own cloud. So for today I'm going to use an MSP account, so you might notice a few bits and pieces there that you might not normally see if you're not an MSP, but that's okay, it's all the same principle. So the first thing we'll do is I'm going to jump into that portal and go down to Cloud Services here on the left. And I'm just going to minimize that pane. And basically here I have a couple of internal Sydney Cloud accounts that we have for my colleagues. What you need to do, or if you're an MSP partner, the first thing you will be prompted is to create a parent account. In this case here it's just represented by cloud accounts, and then we need to add a cloud account. So I'm going to create an account today and we'll actually use this in terms of the demonstration. So account name I'm going to call as YouTube Test, username YouTube Test. We'll just keep that really simple, and now I've got to put in a password that meets those requirements. So I'm just going to go and type one in here. Cool. Now what we have here is account permissions. So as an MSP, I'm basically logged in as a root. So this account that I'm creating is going to be basically the customer's account, or the account that's going to be put into the customer site to replicate their images. Now I can actually give this username and password to the customer so that they could log in, but with limited access. So I could restrict their access with these various options. Now I'm just going to go and actually assign this one full permissions. The next thing is the retention. Now with the new StorageCraft Cloud, it's priced per machine depending on the service level. So we have a look here, we've got retention tier 1, 2 and 3. Now please note this is MSP pricing in relation to my internal cloud account. These pricings do vary depending on partners and the method of purchase. This is not the end user pricing. So if I just select a retention tier of 1 for Cloud Basic, retention tier 2 for Cloud Plus, and retention tier 3, you can see the different options there. And the key thing is the numbering for the daily, weekly, and monthly retention points that we're going to retain. Now I won't drill into too much detail on this right now. This is just the default settings for this account. It can be changed at any time, and each individual machine can be overwritten to have customized retention settings, because there's also a flex tier there as well. Now my screen resolution is a bit small. You can just simply click the tab button to drop down just to the bottom part of the screen, where I'm just simply going to click save. So that's just going to take a minute. That will go ahead and create an account successfully created. You can see here on the left hand side my YouTube test account. So if you are with going through cloud credits that's through distribution, you will just end up at this point here. By the time you've logged in, you would have created your account. That username and password is what we're going to use to log into the portal at any stage, and also for our image manager to replicate our backup images into the cloud. So we get a bit of information here on machines, networking, etc. And I'm going to go through all of these tabs. Up the top here is a bit of information on the account, but as there's no machines yet, this is looking pretty empty. So I'm just going to minimize that window upwards, and this is just going to create us a bit more room. So the next thing we're going to do is go and request a C drive. What this allows us to do is to go ahead and request a C drive, basically where the StorageCraft Cloud will send you out a USB 3 drive or multiple drives to preload all of your existing base and backup chains onto the drives and courier back to us. That makes it nice and easy, but of course you don't have to do this. You can just seed directly over the internet into the StorageCraft Cloud. Good idea if you've got good bandwidth, and perhaps if there's not a large amount of data, it's certainly a very easy way to do it. So on the C drive tab, we go down, you can just simply click Request C drive. You put in your details. You can, at this point, if we fill out the details here, it'll actually allow me to request just a 2 terabyte drive. However, you can contact support and say you need a larger drive to hold more data on a single drive, but you can also request up to 4 drives in the one case that we send out. So that way, particularly for partners, they could do multiple customers at once or get all of the servers in one go. So makes it nice and easy. It comes in a secure locked container with a return courier bag. So really easy, and that's the same process for Australia and New Zealand. So once you've requested the C drive, we then need to get these machines seeded up into the StorageCraft Cloud. So the next thing I'm going to go and look at is, let's go right back to the actual machine itself. Okay, so I'm going to minimize out of the portal here, and I'm going to go into a virtual machine that I've got running. So in ShadowProtect, we need to create a job that is going to be supported by the cloud. And if you already have an existing job that meets these requirements, then that's absolutely fine. The first requirement is the backup job must be encrypted. So I have an AES 256-bit job that I've pre-configured here. So if you're running an existing job that's not encrypted, you have to start a new backup job. There is no way to re-encrypt an existing job. So you will have to start a new job if you're not encrypted already. The other thing is, under schedule, you must be running a continuous incremental schedule. One full backup, incrementals forever. That's going to make it really easy to send to our cloud because we can pre-seed that initial image, and then we're only capturing the sectors that are changing going forward. So it makes it very, very effective. Now, the same process with ShadowProtect 5, no problem there. Obviously, the interface will just look a bit different, but encryption and continuous incremental job. So I've already got this job running. That's going all good. Perhaps what I'll do is just to follow through a full demonstration here, I'm just going to copy a folder onto the desktop. And what we'll do here is I'll take a backup and we'll just go ahead and seed it up into the cloud and actually watch that come back up online. So once this folder is created, what I will explain here is that ShadowProtect is tracking these sectors in real time. So if I go ahead and call this YouTube 2016, I'm going to go back into ShadowProtect and tell it to do an incremental right now. Okay, so we're going to back up those thousands of files. Naturally, ShadowProtect is going to initiate VSS and then take a snapshot to capture those thousands of files. And then what we'll do is go and configure Image Manager to replicate that. So that backup's done, and this will just continue on as per my schedule of every 30 minutes anyway. So we can see nice and fast backup, no impact throughout the day, and then we can have Image Manager go and deal with getting that off-site. So in actual fact, if I just take a quick look here at a diagram I wanted to point out, let's just bring this up to the screen. Up the top left, you've got your production servers and workstations. That's where ShadowProtect installs into the virtual machines, onto those physical servers. It backs up ideally to a backup appliance or a backup server. This is what runs our free Image Manager software. And Image Manager manages this continuous incremental chain. So these 15-minute increments, 24/7, that's 96 increments a day, nearly 700 a week. So that's going to do verification, consolidation, and retention. We then add in a replication job to replicate this to the StorageCraft Cloud. So that's the component we're going to take a look at. Next is configuring Image Manager to replicate to the StorageCraft Cloud. So I'm just going to minimize that. Now back in Image Manager, this is actually the SQL server that I just did the backup of. That incremental we just did has already replicated into the cloud. I'm just going to take a look at another server here, my Exchange 01 server. I'm going to create a replication job for this one now. So we're going to go add new replication target. Under the destination type, we're going to select the StorageCraft Cloud Services, and under location, I have already got an existing location here. All you need to click add new location. So what I'm going to do is go add new location, and I'm just going to put in here StorageCraft Cloud username. Now we created that account, right? So YouTube test, and I'm going to put in my password and go save. The minute I click save, it is going to initiate an SSL connection to the cloud to verify those credentials are okay. It does take a few minutes, well, it can take a few minutes depending on your internet connection. Once that's verified, it then selects that location as it has just done. The next thing is we can override global throttling. I'm going to leave that as I have a global setting there I'm happy with. And then the backup image password. So that's the ShadowProtect encrypted password that you've configured for your job. We obviously need to securely provide the StorageCraft Cloud with that information so that it can create recovery points and actually allow you to virtualize this image. It will maintain security of this data, and you will always require that encryption password when using the cloud portal to access any of this data as well. So once you've done that, the next tab is replication mode. Now the default pricing model for the StorageCraft Cloud is based on sending one increment a day into the cloud, or basically one consolidated backup per volume. So that first option there is the default pricing model, and what that means is if we're backing up, the default is hourly throughout the day with a continuous job, but you can bring it as frequent as every 15 minutes. This will say, look, on site we're getting those 15-minute backups, but we'll only send the consolidated daily file, which is typically done at midnight. So once a day, overnight, it's going to send up the day's consolidated file. But for really critical servers, high rate of change, you may want to set this to immediately replicate the new image file. So this is, right down to that 15-minute schedule. It will immediately send them into the StorageCraft Cloud. Please note there is an additional cost if you want to do this, and that's simply because of the extra compute that the StorageCraft Cloud is having to do with that data. So I'm going to leave it on that option for now. Under Cloud Settings, we then define the service level. So basic is just simple file storage in the cloud. At any time you can request a bare metal recovery drive, which we'll talk about. Cloud Plus is a slightly more expensive option, which gives you the ability any time to perform file and folder recovery from the portal. And then Cloud Premium gives you all of the previously mentioned functions, as well as the ability to virtualize for no extra cost. At any stage you can virtualize any of your backups as VMs in the cloud, and that's what we'll look at today. So I'm going to select Cloud Premium. We can configure a basic warning from Image Manager to alert us to any particular large increments that might happen, and we can send the initial backup images on a C drive. So this is why I covered that step first. You have to have the C drive from StorageCraft connected in before you can create this replication job. In my instance, I'm not going to worry. I'm going to send this over the internet, so I'm just going to simply untick that option and click Save. So again, it takes us a minute or so here to sync, make that initial connection to the cloud with all of those settings, and you can see there under status initializing, and now it is starting to send that initial base image, that ShadowProtect full image, into the cloud over my internet connection. So really easy, and we can see that there's 9 queued files. So it's just finding the shortest path back to the base image. If there's weekly, monthly, daily, intra-daily files, it will find the shortest path it needs to get the latest backups working into the cloud, and then going forward I've told it to immediately replicate any new backups, so that will just keep running as per that schedule. So let's jump back into the cloud portal. If I just scroll up to the top here and click refresh, you see here under YouTube test we now have that one machine. So in fact, if I click on that machine, you will see on the right hand side an upload status, which has just gone over to 0%. Obviously it's a base image, my internet's not that flash, it's going to take some time, but you'll see a percentage there. In fact, it's just jumped up to 1% now. So this will just continue to go. Once it's uploaded the image, it then goes through a conversion process. You can actually find this information if I go back to my account here on the left and go to, sorry, I was actually in the right place before. If I go back to that machine, click on File Details, scroll down, this is where it will show conversion queue. So that's once we've received an image, it will sit in a conversion queue, which is the compute time to actually convert that into a recovery point that we can use in the StorageCraft Cloud. Part of that process is actually extracting that compressed ShadowProtect backup into its raw format, which gives us the power to immediately virtualize and deal with recovering. So in the cloud, you are paying for the original storage consumption, not the compression size of the backups. So that's just something to bear in mind there as well. So we'll come back and look at this in a little moment. If I go back on the left to my account, the next thing, or in fact if I go across to machines, we can see, I'm just going to go back down here and go refresh. Okay, sorry, so there it is now. So it has listed the name of the server immediately. That will continue to upload in the background and then start showing us recovery points once that's uploaded. The first thing I guess you want to do, particularly while seeding is a good opportunity, is to get the networking set up. We want this all ready to go so that in the event of any outage, our networking components all configured. So on the networking tab, the first thing is configuring the local subnet in the StorageCraft Cloud that all of these servers are going to operate on. So the default here uses 192.168.220.0 network. We can modify this to any range you want, and this could either match your existing local subnet or it might represent a different subnet because you're going to be routing to it. So we'll talk more about this. I'm going to just simply change that to 192.168.20.0 network. Okay. Once we've done that, the next thing is we can request public IP addresses. So this is useful if I want to do any type of port forwarding into the cloud or initiate any type of VPN that is public facing. So if I go add IP address, there is a charge for this, so you may opt to only do this at the time of failover to avoid the monthly charges. But in this instance, I've requested one now up front. That way, I'm ready to go at any stage. You know, I just have to change DNS records. So firewall WAN IP, I've requested a public IP. I can select that. Under VPN type, I have two options. I can either perform an open VPN, which is basically our cloud firewall will function as a VPN server, and any user can download the free OpenVPN client, and we create a user account for each user. They can go home, they can go to remote locations and work and VPN into this network. Okay, so OpenVPN, that's what we've had previously available with the legacy cloud, where you simply define a network, a mask, and we can add in users for each person that wants to VPN in. Or we can, in fact, if I just go reset settings here, we can select IPsec VPN, which will allow us to do a site-to-site connection back to an on-premise router or to a different location, perhaps if the main site's gone down. So IPsec for site-to-site, OpenVPN for users that want to go home, multiple users, and use a VPN client to connect into this subnet in the cloud, basically. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. We detail all of the settings required for IPsec on the Cloud User Guide. It's very straightforward to follow and compatible with most routers that do IPsec. Now, the next function in this networking is the private IP addresses. So here it is listing all of the servers available in our cloud. So in this stage, I've only got the one machine. By default, when you virtualize on the StorageCraft Cloud, it's obviously getting a new network adapter, and it's going to default to DHCP. So to make it easy, what you can actually do is double click on DHCP here and select DHCP reservation, and then on the right here we can choose what IP address we want the server to come up with. So for example, this server here on my local network might have 192.168.20.50, and I want to keep it the same. So I'm going to type in 50 in that end column and click Save. So that way, when this server comes up with its new network adapter and Windows defaults to DHCP, we will automatically assign it that appropriate IP address so that it comes back up again with the correct information. Again, of course, if your existing site's still on, you may actually want this to be a different subnet and different IP anyway. So that's the key thing there. You would go and do that to any servers that you want to specify. What that then allows you to do is add port mappings. So this is an Exchange server, so I'm going to go into port mappings, public IP address, there's the IP I have selected, and obviously we could have multiple ones in here. And there's a couple of things I need to add. So SMTP needs to come inbound to that server, 25, protocol TCP, and I'm going to go add. So we need to make sure mail flow, and again, I'm presetting all of this up before the server's ever going to fail. So 25, this server also, I need, there's a bunch of services actually that this is running, and the next one will be, I'm actually looking for HTTPS, which I don't think is defined. There is a predefined one, so that's okay. We can just put in 443, public address, 443, protocol TCP. So nice and easy to just simply go ahead here and add your various ports for whatever services you need. We can, if I've got other machines in here, one might be a web server, RD gateway, that kind of thing. It's very easy to request however many public IPs and configure all the different port forwardings you might need. So now that I've got my network all set up, I'm now ready for a disaster. At any stage I can perform a test, but also at any stage if my server was to fail or I had any form of disaster, all I have to deal with is my networking in terms of DNS. And because I've got these public IPs, I would just simply update my DNS records, my MX records, A records, etc. to point to these new IPs and bring up the servers, and away we go. So this is eliminating a lot of stress. Okay, cool. So that server, let's just go and take a look back here at the uploading process. It's probably going to take some time. I think I'm only on a 20 megabit circuit in terms of upload speed where I am at the moment. So what I'm actually going to do is jump across to another account here, my Karl Thomson account. This is actually got that SQL server I initially did that incremental backup on. So I think it is this one here, STC SQL 01. If we take a look over here, on the right hand side, upload status complete for this machine. Last image received, incremental 225. If I just jump back to Image Manager, go up to my SQL server, we can see they're sent base image incremental 225. So it's the same backup in here. Now, down the bottom, it shows all of the various recovery points. The key thing to know in the way the new StorageCraft Cloud works is although it's receiving these incrementals throughout the day, it's not generating it into a recovery point that's presented on your portal. It's only doing that once a day, the first backup of the day. So in terms of if you send up that consolidated backup at night, the next incremental that comes up in the morning is what will get generated into an available recovery point. So in the instance where I am only sending up, in the instance where I'm sending up incrementals immediately, I may actually want to get the server's most recent backup rather than the beginning of the day. So at any stage, you can click this button called Generate Recovery Point. There's no cost associated with this, other than it may use up more storage if we're generating lots of these. So that's just requested a recovery point. Under File Details is where it would list if it was queuing that processing to do. I'm just going to do a refresh here. It hasn't appeared. If I go back to recovery points, I can actually see right now it is actually showing that recovery point I just requested. So there's my C drive. I can actually go mount here. So this is available for Cloud Plus and Premium customers. Put in your encrypted password and go mount. And that is going to basically do what ShadowProtect users know as a quick mount, where it's going to immediately give me access. If I click on Browse, go down into C drive, users, admin, desktop. So expand that out. There's that folder I created earlier. So I can just simply tick that folder and click Create Zip File. Zips it up nice and easy for me, and then I can download it once it's done. So I think that that folder had about 8,500 files in it. So it might take a minute or so to zip that up, but then I can just easily download that to a user's computer. So this with Cloud Plus is great if you don't need to actually virtualize the whole server, but I think the premium option is the most attractive that people are looking for, where we can actually virtualize this backup and get it online. So I'm just going to cancel that mount. You can just see there again there's thousands of files there. That particular folder might take a few moments to zip up. Now once we're finished, at any stage we can unmount any of these recovery points. The key thing we want to look at is launching this virtual machine. So if I click on launch, again it'll pop up giving me a list of recovery points. So there's that 4 o'clock one we just manually generated. On the right I'm going to put in my encrypted password, and we've got a real failover button here. If you tick this, you're telling the StorageCraft Cloud that your on-premise machine has failed, and it will now capture its own recovery points while this machine's running in our cloud. Now because this isn't a real failover, I don't want to tick this because I know that my original machine is actually still uploading into the cloud at this time, so I'm just using this as a test. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Virtualize. And this takes a few moments. This is actually going through and performing a hardware independent restore to say, look, I don't care if that backup was a physical server, VMware, Hyper-V, whatever supported environment it might be, it's going to inject the appropriate drivers and immediately virtualize this machine. So it typically takes a few minutes. Once that's done, we have a few basic functions here on stop, start, and view console. And the view console is really nice. It's now a VNC connection in browser, so we can actually watch the server boot up as it starts up. You know, we could get into safe mode if we had to, that kind of thing, and deal with anything. But in most instances, it's going to be really straightforward. In this particular cloud account, if I just take a look over at networking and scroll down to my SQL server, it is just left on DHCP. So that's fine. That's how I've left this particular machine. So we go back to SQL 01. We can see that it's still virtualizing. A couple of things I skipped over: the boot volume. In this instance, there is only one volume. In some instances where you've got multiple volumes, you know, I have yet to see this not actually successfully detect the proper volume, but that's actually a drop-down that you can select at any time. We can see the server's now running. So stop or destroy, I'm just going to click on View. It's going to open up in a separate tab in this portal. In fact, I can actually click open new browser window, and there we go, it's brought up. I'm not sure actually here. I'm just going to close that tab. I might have just been a bit quick. Click View again. It'll pop up that tab. Yeah, cool. So same thing, we're just watching it within the tab there. In some instances, it's nice to open up as a new window to maximize the viewable area of the VM. So we're just watching Windows boot up. This is a 2012 R2 VM. It goes through a process of further dealing with its drivers that it's detected have changed. But yeah, basically, this is really nice to actually watch this come up. You know, if we'd had some issue with networking or whatever, we've got complete console access to deal with whatever we have to do. Now, just while that's booting up, I just want to talk about the next process that's part of this cloud. I'm just going to close that tab down. If we look here at recovery points, this is the recovery point I just virtualized. If I had ticked that box for real failover, it will obviously continue to generate recovery points that become available to us. Now, at this point in time, the server's running, changes are being made, users are going to be logging in, etc. At some point, you're going to want to get the server back on premise again, and you know, there might be several servers. You need to select your most recent recovery point and click this button here, Request BMR Drive. So you click this, and much like the C drive, you just put in your details, and we're going to courier you a bare metal recovery drive with your most recent backup. The key thing to remember here is don't worry about this changing. This, while we're sending you that drive, and you know, it's 24 hours per terabyte of copy time for us to get it onto a USB 3 disk, and then it's overnight courier, or even 2 days if you're in New Zealand or in Perth perhaps, might take a bit longer. There's a couple of days there while this thing is in transit to you. The key thing to remember is that this machine is up and running the whole time during that process. So we're not actually offline. We don't have to wait and be offline while that's been sent to you. When you receive that BMR drive, it then syncs back into the StorageCraft Cloud using our recovery environment, and actually allows you to capture the most recent incremental, send that over the internet, restore it back with the rest of your data on that BMR drive back onto disk on site. So it's basically like a reverse head start restore. Works really well. It's a really easy way to, again, limit the impact that's happening over your internet connection by basically reverse seeding that using the BMR function. And again, back on site, it could be completely different hardware. It could be passed through into a virtual environment to perform that restore. So really easy. We can see here that was that incremental where I created that folder earlier as well, which is nice to see. So that server's up and running. It's got internet access. It's got DHCP address there that I've predefined. If my users had used OpenVPN, they can VPN into this network. Perhaps if I had a remote desktop server, people might not even know, users might not even know that we've failed over into the StorageCraft Cloud. They just go home, use their remote access connection that they already had, and you've updated an A record, and they're just connecting in where they normally do and keep on working. So if you design it right from the beginning, deal with your networking first, it makes it really easy to ensure that there's a smooth operation in the event of a disaster. Now, because this is a test, I'm just simply going to click Destroy VM, and that will remove that virtual machine that's running, and it just reverts back to continuing to receive incremental backups that have come from my on-premise server. So the next thing to look at is we talked about file details. I've selected the SQL Server here. We can go into retention and override those default retentions we talked about earlier for this account and give this particular machine its specific retention settings. So if I click on override, it basically just reloads those same options again. This is MSP pricing for my particular account, so just ignore this. It's not the retail pricing. But we've got flexed here where we can very heavily customize what we're wanting to retain. And then that final tab is machine metrics, where it gives us information and graphics on space used, basically. Very straightforward there. If I jump back to my actual account, there's the default retention for all machines, but also under account alerts, this is pretty cool. We can basically go in here, if I scroll down and click on this button. In fact, I'll just move this across so you can see what I'm doing here. This button here is add email address, so I'm going to put in Thomson at storagecraft.co.nz, go save, and then I'm going to add an alert. So up here, the type of alert, we've got a whole heap of alerts, so we can alert you on upload inactivity, large growth, machine added, deleted, a VM's running, etc., so that we can get people or groups of people alerted to these type of activities. So I'm just going to put upload inactivity threshold. I want to know after 1-2 days. I'm going to add in that available email address and click save. So that on the left hand side is going to go ahead and generate that alert. I can add in whichever alerts I want and to go to whoever, so that people are aware of anything that's happening in the StorageCraft Cloud or any potential issue there. So pretty straightforward. We've got a whole heap more alerts in this new cloud. The networking's all new. The BMR process is more refined, and we're now really geared up to deal with DR in the best possible way to offer you business continuity. Now, hopefully I've covered off sufficient demonstration here for you today, and you've been able to see the various processes from creating accounts, setting retention, creating backup jobs with appropriate configurations, creating a seed or replication job in Image Manager and getting that into the cloud, configuring the networking, requesting C drive, etc., to going through and actually launching a VM and also performing file and folder recovery. So hopefully this is valuable to you, and thanks again for taking your time to watch this demonstration. Again, my name is Karl Thomson from StorageCraft Asia Pacific. Cheers.